This last lecture is just going to give you a brief overview of the early primate fossil record. I think it's important to cover some of this material before we get to human evolution, where you understand that we have a pretty good idea and clear record of fossil primates that mimics the cladogram or, phylogenetic tree or chart that I was showing you that we, divided primates into in the last module. So let's talk about kind of the fossil history of life on the Earth, and let's focus on early primates. Right, this is a chart you should be familiar with because we went over it in the last module where we talked about the two different types of classification schemes that classify at least primates into two major groups: strepsirrhines, haplorhines, and prosimians and anthropoids. And then a number of these other groups, like lemurs, lorises, tarsiers, New World, Old World monkeys, and apes. And the neat thing about a chart like this is not only does it show us the way organisms, living primates, how they're related to each other evolutionarily today, but it also tells us about the sequence of fossils in the fossil record. Lemurs are the oldest fossils we have. We don't have a very good fossil record for lorises. We have a good fossil record for tarsiers, a decent fossil record for platyrrhines, although it could be better. Some things that are missing. We have a good fossil record for old world monkeys and a pretty good fossil record for apes, and they follow. Hominoids are the most derived, and then lemurs, right? We have them at the base of the tree, not only because they look like the most primitive primates, most closely related to non-primate mammals, right? Because they have a tapetum lucidum. Remember that they also have a larger snout, and they inherited strepsirrhini, the split upper lip and wet nose that we see in other non-primate mammals. So instinctively, we put them at the base of the tree because of all the traits that they have that they share with the more primitive non-primate mammals, but we also find them the oldest in the fossil record. That's why they're also at the base of the tree. So this tree also mimics the history of the fossil record of primates on Earth. It's important to note how geologic time is measured. So what I want you to understand is that um, geologic time is typically seen as sequences of major events that are pinpointed over the history of the Earth and particular life on Earth. So we have eons, and within those eons, I think there are two of them, there are eras, and inside those eras are periods, and inside those periods are epochs. And so here I'll give you a lowdown on the major eras known as the Paleozoic, uh, Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. And this is one of the more recent eons on Earth that actually is reminiscent of life, right? It typically tells us about life. So in the eras of the Earth, in this eon, we have the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. Paleozoic is the age of the fish. Mesozoic is the age of the dinosaurs, and of course, the Cenozoic is the age of mammals. What you do is you have a number of different extinction events that separate the eras. Matter of fact, we think that there was a major extinction event 250 million years old known as the Permian Triassic Apocalypse. And this is actually where we think there was a major mass extinction and killed 75% of all, or actually maybe more, 75, 80, maybe more, all life on Earth. And then right at the Mesozoic-Cenozoic boundary, which is known as the KT boundary, another mass extinction event. A meteor hits the Earth at around the area of the Yucatan, and that is the event that kills the dinosaurs about 50, 60 million years ago. All the small little creatures that were tree shrews, flying squirrels, colugos, they evolved into primates, and eventually, of course, into more derived forms, eventually us being the last one to evolve on this planet. What we then need to focus on is the Cenozoic era. and the epochs of the Cenozoic. You should be familiar with these epochs and kind of the order they go in. You don't need to know like the millions of years each one of them is. It's fine. Just as well as have an idea of what happens in each one of these major epochs. So the Paleocene is the oldest one. Then you have the Eocene, Oligocene, the Miocene, Pliocene, Pleistocene, and kind of what we're in now is known as the Holocene. Look at the Holocene. 0.01 million years ago. It's actually 10,000 years ago. Holocene actually signifies humans' modification of the earth to a great extent because we invented agriculture. Some people think we're now in what's known as the Anthropocene, where humans are now negatively impacting the planet in terms of global warming and the environment. Each one of these epochs is has a major geologic event associated with it. The closest extant taxa that are alive today to primates look like tree shrews, colugos, flying squirrels, and other mammals that evolved extended flight like bats. They look like the ones that were able to survive the meteor and all of the distinction that followed, because we think the whole planet was engulfed in flames and burned for quite some time. And when all the dust settled, it was really the small animals like mammals, primate-like mammals, that were able to survive and eventually evolve into primates. What you should be familiar with is each one of these epochs, kind of the order it goes, as well as the types of primate fossils we find in each one of them. So in the Paleocene, there are no clear primate fossils. There looks to be like ones that are candidates that are very similar to the tree shrews, but there's really nothing certain. But all of a sudden in the Eocene, 54 million years ago, you've got early strepsirrhines, you've got some of the earliest haplorhines like tarsiers that evolve. In the Oligocene, we have early monkeys evolve. And then in the Miocene, we have ape diversity. We have apes in Europe, we have apes in Africa, we have apes in Asia. Matter of fact, more apes than monkeys in the Miocene than we have today, which is just the opposite. We actually have more monkey diversity than ape diversity. So be familiar with each one of these geologic epochs and the types of primate fossils we would find in them. When we look at the living hominoids, right, that's lesser apes, great apes, and us, we can actually look at the dates that we've diverged from these species using DNA. And so it looks like we diverge the genus Homo away from Pan, chimpanzees, and bonobos 6.5 million years. I think the studies suggest 5 to 8 million years. 8 million years, gorilla, these are mean dates. 12.5 million with orangutans, hylobates, lesser apes, gibbons, and siamangs, 17 million. Old world monkeys, 23 million, right? Each one of these nodes is when we last shared a common ancestor with each one of them. And look at it. We can superimpose a chart like this over geologic time, because not only can we verify this with DNA, we can also verify this with fossils. And let's put some of these fossils on here at these important nodes. Have we found some of the direct ancestors of, of some of the recent descendants? So what we're going to do in the last part of the class is look at the hominids. Those are the creatures that are intermediary between apes and us, that post-date the split after chimpanzees and bonobos. The last part of the class, that's what we're going to focus on, that very small part known as the hominids. But look at the other parts of this chart. Look at between old world monkeys and lesser apes, hylobates. You've got Kenyanpithecus, Afropithecus, and proconsul. We have these creatures. They actually have teeth that make them look like an ape, but they're kind of small like a monkey. We don't really know how to interpret them in some ways. When you look at some of the other fossil apes, we don't have really good candidates for a fossil chimp or bonobo. We don't have a good candidate for a fossil gorilla. And we've got other fossils like Shivapithecus, which we're pretty certain is the ancestor to modern orangutans. Shiva the skull and the morphology, like the shapes and the sizes, looks almost the same as modern orangutans. So we're pretty clear in terms of fossil hominoids, like fossil apes. We're pretty clear that Shiva is the only clear ancestor to modern descendants, which are living orangutans. So that's all I wanted you to really know about the early primate fossil record, just little bits and pieces. What we really want to know is, of course, after we've got the good background onto how to study paleontology, how do we know how old things are, as well as a little preview of what the fossil record for primates looks like, we're going to move to hominids. That's the last part of this course. Now that you have all this background material, we are going to apply it to those creatures that provide a clear argument that there was a necessary transition from walking on all four limbs to two legs without a tail, not seen in any other organisms progressively evolving like that on this planet. And so everything that we've done in this class has been a prelude or preview so we can actually start talking about the hominids.